How does one man add over $100 billion to his net worth in a single day? Not by building something new, but by being first in line when the government picks winners. Most people see Larry Ellison as a quiet tech billionaire. The mechanics show something colder, a man who spent 40 years learning that the real product isn't software, it's leverage. Today we're stripping back the tech genius story to show you the real engine. You're going to see how Ellison tried to blow up a multi-billion-dollar Pentagon deal rather than let a rival win it. How a database company with zero social media users ended up running the TikTok deal, handpicked while the US government had the app cornered. How he bought 98% of an entire Hawaiian island, almost all of Lanai, like he was ordering off a menu. And how he built a sales team so ruthless that "I want them to fear us" wasn't an insult. It was the plan. This isn't about databases. It's the playbook for building the kind of power that politicians have to deal with. In 2018, the Pentagon put up the biggest prize in tech, a single 10-year, $10 billion contract to run the entire military's cloud. There was just one problem for Larry Ellison. Oracle's own bid had already been thrown out. It couldn't even meet the minimum requirements to compete. So Ellison didn't try to win it. He tried to make sure nobody could. Oracle's real target was Amazon, the front runner. So the company went to war on every front at once. It funded a shadowy attack group aimed at Amazon. It filed protest after protest, then sued the federal government itself. 3 separate attempts to blow up the procurement. And Oracle's top lobbyists built a one-page document titled "A Conspiracy to Create a 10-Year DoD Cloud Monopoly," which reportedly landed on the president's desk. And while all of this was happening, Ellison did something no other tech CEO would touch. He hosted a fundraiser for the president, the one man with the power to kill Amazon's bid. The courts ultimately threw Oracle's case out. They never proved the conflict they alleged. But it didn't matter. Amazon lost the contract anyway. Ellison had learned the lesson that runs through every move on this list. If you can't win the deal outright, make it too toxic for your enemy to keep. That instinct, turn the government into a weapon against your rivals, was just the beginning. In 2016, Oracle paid $9.3 billion for a software company called NetSuite. The catch? The man running Oracle was Larry Ellison, and the man who owned 40% of NetSuite was also Larry Ellison. He sat on both ends of the table. Oracle paid a 60% plus premium over what analysts said NetSuite was worth, using shareholders' money to buy a company Ellison controlled. He personally walked away with nearly $4 billion, a roughly 3,100% return on someone else's checkbook. Shareholders revolted and sued for self-dealing. 3 board members even let the company sue its own founder. After a 5-year fight, Ellison won. He'd recused himself and used a special committee, keeping it technically arm's length. But look at what happened. He had his own company overpay for a company he owned, pocketed $4 billion, and structured it so cleanly the courts couldn't touch him. That's the difference between a man who breaks the rules and one who owns the table they're written on. In June 2012, Larry Ellison didn't buy a house in Hawaii. He bought the island. For $300 million, he purchased 98% of Lanai, the 6th largest island in Hawaii, 90,000 acres, 2 Four Seasons resorts, and a town of roughly 3,000 people. The state and a handful of homeowners own the leftover 2%. Everything else is his, and owning the land was just the start. Ellison owns the island's only grocery store, the only gas station, the community newspaper, the water company, most of the housing. Overnight, for nearly everyone living there, he became their landlord, their boss, or both at once. There's a name locals use for what that feels like, a plantation mentality, where people are afraid to criticize the one man who controls the roof over their head and the job that pays for it. Here's why this belongs on the list. Most billionaires buy assets. Ellison bought an entire functioning society and quietly became the sole authority over it. When one person owns the land, the water, the stores, the jobs, and the only newspaper that could question him, there's no real check left. He didn't break a single law doing it. He just understood something most people never grasp. The ultimate form of leverage isn't money in the bank. It's being the one everyone else has to answer to. Here's how Oracle makes money off something free. For years, Java, the language running on billions of devices and inside most big companies, was free. Oracle got it in 2010 when it bought Sun. Then in 2023, it quietly flipped the model. Java would now be licensed per employee. Everyone on your payroll, whether they touch it or not. Then the audits start. It begins friendly. An Oracle rep emails about a security update. That's not service, it's reconnaissance. Hand over details and the tone flips. They've detected Java on your network, and you owe back fees up to 3 years. Build at full headcount. One unlicensed install can trigger a bill to license your whole company, 6 or 7 figures. The industry even named the playbook ABC, audit, bargain, close. Find non-compliance, present a terrifying bill, then offer to make it vanish if you buy more Oracle Cloud. Some customers were so scared they signed new deals before the audit even finished. That's the genius. Ellison doesn't need you to like Oracle. The product is free, the trap is the contract, and the fear does the selling. In June 2003, PeopleSoft, a major rival, agreed to buy another company to grow stronger. Days later, before that deal could close, Ellison launched a surprise hostile takeover of PeopleSoft itself. And he said the plan out loud: buy them, kill their products, and force their customers onto Oracle. He wanted the customers. The company was just in the way. What followed was an 18-month war. PeopleSoft's CEO called Oracle a sociopathic company. They sued. They promised customers refunds. Ellison just kept raising his bid, going over the board straight to shareholders, and beat the government's antitrust block in court. He closed it for $10.3 billion, then fired 5,000 PeopleSoft employees, a purge plan from the start. He didn't spend a year and $10 billion to build something. He did it to swallow a competitor whole and delete it. That's the move. When a rival won't sell, you buy them, gut them, and keep the customers. In 2009, Ellison bought Sun Microsystems for $7.4 billion. On paper, a struggling hardware company, bleeding $100 million a month. But Ellison wasn't after the hardware. He was after 2 things buried inside Sun: Java, the language running on billions of devices, and MySQL, the free open-source database used by half the internet. Watch the genius and the menace. MySQL was the single biggest free threat to Oracle's expensive flagship database. So Ellison bought its owner, and now controlled his biggest open-source rival from the inside. Regulators in Europe panicked. He refused to spin it off and forced the deal through anyway. He said it plainly: Java is the most important software Oracle has ever acquired. And here's the payoff that ties this whole video together. That Java he bought in 2009? It's the exact same Java he'd later weaponize into the per-employee license trap, billing companies for years of back fees. He didn't just buy a company. He bought the foundation everyone else was building on, then spent the next decade charging them rent on it. It's not enough to control the world's data. Ellison is now buying the screens America watches. In 2024, his son David's company, Skydance, moved to take over Paramount, the owner of CBS. The catch: Trump was suing CBS's 60 Minutes, and the merger needed government approval. Paramount paid Trump $16 million to settle that suit. No apology. And weeks later promised to overhaul CBS News. The deal went through. Larry helped finance it. Then they went bigger. In late 2025, Ellison personally pledged over $40 billion to bankroll his son's hostile bid for Warner Bros. Discovery, the parent of CNN and HBO. Read that again. One family attempting to own CBS, CNN, HBO, and Paramount at once. Here's why it belongs near the top. Most billionaires buy influence over the news. Ellison is buying the news outlets themselves. The studios, the networks, the cable channels. Combine that with the TikTok algorithm he now controls, and a single family has its hands on what hundreds of millions of Americans watch, scroll, and believe. That's not a media company. That's a megaphone the size of a country. Most billionaires buy political access loudly. Ellison did it quietly. Per the Wall Street Journal, he gave roughly $45 million to a nonprofit backing Trump's 2024 campaign. Money that, by its structure, never had to be disclosed. Almost nobody knew until long after. Then watch the timeline. The day after Trump's second inauguration, Oracle was named an anchor of Stargate, a $500 billion AI data center plan, unveiled at the White House with Ellison beside the president. Months later, Oracle landed its piece of TikTok. And this isn't a one-off. Ellison has poured tens of millions into super PACs for years, and Oracle now runs an army of 64 federal lobbyists. Here's the payoff. The most staggering number in this video. As these deals landed, Oracle's stock exploded, and in a single day, Ellison's net worth jumped by roughly $100 billion. $100 billion. In a day, briefly making him the richest man on earth. That's the playbook perfected. Don't beg in public. Write the quiet check, stand next to the power, and let the stock do the rest. The same year Ellison bought Java, he weaponized it by suing the biggest company on earth. Google had used about 11,500 lines of Java code to build Android, under 0.5% of the system. Didn't matter. In 2010, Oracle sued for as much as $9 billion, claiming it owned the basic building blocks of how software talks to software. A P are like the grammar of programming, the shared rules everyone builds on. Ellison tried to copyright the grammar itself, then charge the world to use it. The case ground on for over a decade, and in 2021, the Supreme Court shut him down 6-2, ruling Google's use was fair. Oracle lost and branded Google a thief and a monopolist. But notice the instinct, because it drives every move on this list. Find something you own, then make the whole world pay rent on it. He lost this one. He was about to win much bigger, which brings us to number 1. By 2025, TikTok wasn't just an app. It was the most powerful attention machine ever built, feeding 170 million Americans whatever it decided they should see. Congress had voted to ban it. ByteDance was cornered, forced to sell or go dark. And out of every company on earth, the winner was a database company that had never built a social app in its life. The deal handed Oracle the keys. Oracle would retrain TikTok's algorithm from the ground up, store every American's data in its cloud, and the new owners, Ellison's Circle, would decide what gets shown and what gets buried. He didn't buy a company. He bought the dial on what 170 million people see every day. And here's the part most people miss. Ellison spent years backing the president who'd later bless this deal. So when ByteDance was forced to sell, the man first in line wasn't the highest bidder, it was the friend. Oracle's stock jumped, his fortune swelled past anyone else in tech, and a database guy walked away holding the most dangerous algorithm in the world. That's the whole playbook. Don't build the thing everyone's fighting over. Be the one the government trusts to hand it to. So that's the Larry Ellison playbook. 10 moves, 1 ruthless idea. Don't build what everyone's fighting over. Own the thing they all depend on, then charge the world to use it. A database salesman who ended up holding an island, an algorithm, and a piece of the news itself. Genius or a warning? Drop it in the comments. And if you think Ellison played the game hard, wait until you meet the man they call the Wolf in Cashmere. Bernard Arnault bought a fashion legend for a single franc, then carved up an entire industry to build the largest luxury empire on earth. That's the next video. Subscribe so you don't miss it.